Would you rather have a Timex or a Rolex? I'm guessing most of you would choose the latter, but the Rolex costs about 1,000 times more. Sometimes though, the gap between low-key and luxury isn't so wide. See, in this case, both Honda and Acura are owned by the same company, and since they're both similarly sized four-door sedans, you can kind of think of them as a luxury and mainstream version of the same car. But which was more worth it? Edmunds drives, tests, and rates hundreds of cars each year. As trusted experts, we've teamed up with CarMax to help you make the best car buying decision. These two have a lot in common. So what are the real differences here? Now, if we look at reliability, that Honda reputation shines true for both of these cars. We trust RepairPal, an independent reliability tracker, for that kind of data, and there is good news here. The Accord gets a 4.5 out of 5-star rating, and so does the TLX. And both cars are ranked highest in their respective segments when you combine the average cost, frequency, and severity of repairs. According to the numbers, these are two cars you can really rely on. And don't worry about crash test scores either. Both cars earn a top safety pick plus from the IIHS. Okay, I hear you. You want to know how much they cost. Now, price-wise, you're going to spend more on the luxury brand like you might expect. Looking at new car prices, the Acura costs around $15,000 more than its Honda cousin. But what might surprise you is that on the used market, it's less than half of that. A used TLX costs $6,500 more than the Accord. Question is, how much better is the TLX for the extra cash? Well, we gotta start with the Accord. The good thing about the Accord is, well, it is really good. This generation Accord debuted back in 2023, and it's been one of our favorite mid-size sedans we've tested ever since. We'll tell you its advantage over the TLX in a little bit. This interior is really nice. These materials and the design functionality is a huge upgrade from the previous generations. And I really like these real metal knobs they use for the temperature controls instead of having to use the touchscreen. They've got a nice little click to them too. And this trim that goes across the entire dash really ties everything together. This tech is also a highlight for our team too. We've tested Hondas for decades, and sometimes they can seem a little behind the curve when it comes to tech. But that is just not the case when it comes to this Accord. In the hundreds of cars we've tested each year, we've seen screens of all sizes and all manner of locations. And this one is great. It's high enough on the dashboard that you don't have to look too far down from the road, big enough to quickly read, and close enough that it's easy to reach. If you get an Accord Touring, you get Google integration for the maps and voice assistant, plus access to the Google Play Store for apps like Waze and Spotify. Even on this Accord Sport L, which doesn't have that tech, the screen is responsive and easy to use. Plus, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. In all versions of the Accord, get this screen behind the steering wheel that shows basic info like your speed and trip odometer, and it'll also show you maps, which is a feature that we love to see. Here's one tip. If tech is important to you, skip the basic Accord LX and EX with a much smaller screen. Apple CarPlay feels really cramped on a display that small, but Honda made the screens on those lower models a little bigger for 2026. There's also a bunch of space in here, and in our experience driving these cars, Honda does a great job at small item storage, and this car doesn't disappoint. This bin is pretty big. There's storage in the side of the doors for your water bottles, plus I love that there's this little spot right here so you can throw your phone. And there's a ton of space in the back seat. You get way more room here than you would in something smaller like a Honda Civic. It's just a shame that not all trim levels get rear air vents. Now that spaciousness extends to the trunk too. You can't fit big single items like in an SUV, but there's a ton of room. But the biggest advantage over the TLX is at the pump. Higher trim levels of the Accord come with a hybrid engine that gets way better fuel economy than what's in the Acura. Even if you compare the least efficient version of the Accord Hybrid to the most efficient version of the TLX, the Honda will save you around $1,400 a year. Now, it is slower from behind the wheel for sure, but our editors found the Accord is still a satisfying car to drive. Pretty comfortable, easy to drive smoothly, and every Accord gets Honda's driver assist features. So you'll have the adaptive cruise, lane centering, and emergency braking tech you'd hope for in a modern vehicle. Honestly, there's a lot to like here, so why would you spend an extra $6,500 on an Acura? I mean, yeah. It would be tough to argue that the TLX isn't a better looking car, especially when you see that side profile. And this extra space between the wheels and the dashboard, that all makes this car look like it's fast, even when it's sitting still. Inside, as you might expect in a luxury brand, the materials are nice and the design is pretty. You get the same wireless CarPlay and Android Auto that you get in the Accord, and in this car, that 12.3-inch screen is standard. But the one huge difference is that in the Acura, you don't get a touchscreen. You get a trackpad that uses relative positioning with Acura's menus. So just like a laptop trackpad. Yes, you can get used to this, but we'd prefer a simple touchscreen, like in almost all the other cars we test, and a lot of owners agree. Acura knows this too, because they've moved away from the touchpad in their newer models. So make sure to test it out at the dealer to see if it's something that you can actually get used to. Also, because the current TLX generation started a few years back before the current Accord, you're stuck with old school USB-A ports. You can get adapters so you don't have to get new cables or fish out some old ones, but it's annoying. Another sign of this gen's older design, you don't get a screen behind the steering wheel like you do in the Accord, and in almost all of the other newer cars we test. I mean, this isn't bad per se, but there's no maps here like you can get in the Accord. One benefit of the TLX is the audio system. You can get a 13 or 17 speaker system and they both sound great. Way better than anything you can get in the Accord. Seriously though, especially if you get the upgraded system with the TLX A-Spec or TLX Advanced. It's one of the better audio systems we've tested in any luxury car. We love these seats too. They look the part for a sporty luxury sedan, but they're also really well padded and supportive. We drive these cars for hours at a time for testing, and no one on staff has had any complaints about the TLX's seats. That is until you get to the rear. Now these are similarly sized cars on the outside, but on the inside, the TLX has way less room in the back. There's less leg room, headroom, and shoulder room than what you get in the Accord, which means less room when you want to carry your friends around, and if you have a car seat, there's less room for that as well. And if you have a rear-facing car seat, you're definitely gonna have to push that front passenger up. But hey, on the positive side, almost all trim levels have rear air vents, which your passengers will love. But it's the way this car drives and what's under the hood that's the most different from the Honda. Instead of the Accord's hybrid 4-cylinder, here you get a turbo 4-cylinder that has a fair amount more pep. We strap our testing gear to almost every car we drive, and the TLX is almost a second quicker from 0 to 60. And there's even a TLX with a turbo V6 that has some serious get up and go. Now the Accord does have enough power for merging and passing, but you'll definitely feel a little more confident driving the Acura. Speaking of confidence, you can get the TLX with all-wheel drive, which is a major selling point for folks who spend a lot of time driving in snow and in rain. The big trade-off is that there's no hybrid, so the gas mileage drops significantly compared to the Accord. So depending on your priorities, that can play a huge factor. So the Accord's got space, efficiency, and value on its side, but the Acura wins big in style, audio, and performance. Sometimes taking the leap up to luxury is worth the extra cost, but in this case, in our expert opinion, the Accord is a better buy. But what do you think? Would either of these cars work better than the other for your lifestyle? Are the design and the engine of the Acura worth the extra cost to you? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.